I think the hardest part of investigating the afterlife is, what if the news is bad? But it's good. All the news is good. So do the investigation. The most important thing it does, I think, is take away all fear.
That moment was when I understood that heaven is not a place, but it's a state. And whether I chose to stay there or come back into the body, now that I knew what I knew, I would bring heaven with me.
Heaven, Bardo, Nirvana, the other side. The enigmatic idea of life after death has intrigued humanity since time immemorial. There have been thousands of anecdotes from around the world describing an afterlife, the vast majority of which come from near-death experiences, or NDEs. From a perception of being outside one's body to racing down a dark tunnel towards a bright white light, near-death experiencers frequently report remarkably similar occurrences. Yet are these accounts proof enough that our consciousness lives on after our corporeal form dies? Or are these experiences merely the result of a physical process within a dying brain? What can evidence for an afterlife reveal about the nature of our reality? According to a survey conducted by the International Association for Near-Death Studies in the US, Australia, and Germany, anywhere from 4 to 15% of the population has had a near-death experience. These numbers have been replicated in numerous other surveys, and interest in NDEs has grown exponentially of late. Accounts of near-death experiences date back to ancient times. Modern-era research into near-death experiences is generally said to have begun in 1975. That was the year Raymond A. Moody, Jr., a philosopher turned psychiatrist, published Life After Life, a groundbreaking book based on interviews with some 150 near-death experiences. In all of the cases he looked into, Dr. Moody discovered claims of startling similarity with experiences at or near the moment of death.
Near-death experiences are a common pattern of conscious experience that occurs to people who are on the verge of death. For example, in a cardiac arrest from which they are resuscitated. And basically, they consist of elements that are common all over the world. Not every person has all of the elements, but among the things that people say are that they hear the doctor say something like, "Oh my God, he's dead," or "We've lost her," which is very surprising to them because they say that, "I have never felt so alive as when I heard that doctor say I was dead." Because from their point of view, they feel that they distance themselves from their physical body. And they watch the scene of the resuscitation typically from a point of view above it. As this progresses, they eventually wake up to the fact that, oh, this must be something to do with death. And at that point, they enter into states of consciousness that no matter how articulate they may be, they say there are no words for it, that it's indescribable. They go through a passageway into a beautiful light. They feel comfort, peace, and joy. They meet relatives and friends of theirs who have died, and they go through panoramic memory in which everything they've ever done is displayed around them in a sort of holographic, three-dimensional panorama. And they come back from these experiences with a total new take on life, thinking that the most important thing we can do while we're here is to learn how to love, and saying that they have no more fear of death because they feel that death is just a transition into some other reality.
Is this other reality a hallucination through firing synapses within the dying brain? Or could it be a literal other realm, accessed by a liberated consciousness at the moment of death? In 2012, Dr. Ibn Alexander published the book Proof of Heaven, a neurosurgeon's journey into the afterlife. When, several years earlier, his brain was attacked by a rare and mysterious bacterium, he laid motionless in a coma for 7 days, During that time, Dr. Alexander claimed that he went on a journey beyond this world, meeting an angelic being who guided him back to a divine source of the universe.
It all started with 54 years of life working as an academic neurosurgeon, thinking I understood brain, mind, and consciousness. And then 4:30 in the morning, November 10th, 2008, I suddenly became very ill with a rapidly progressive gram-negative bacterial meningoencephalitis that took over my brain within a few hours, drove me into a state of seizures, deep into coma, and then I was admitted to a hospital where I had worked as a neurosurgeon, and I spent 7 days in that coma. My doctors basically thought I had a 10% chance of survival early in the week, down to 2% by the end of the week, with no chance of recovery. And that's when I started coming back to this world. Had an extraordinary experience that by all of current neuroscience would be completely impossible because of the damage to the human part of my brain, my neocortex. And yet it did happen. And that has been the basis of this mystery I've been trying to unravel for the last 9 years.
Dr. Alexander is one of a growing number of highly credentialed medical professionals who counter the arguments of scientists who attribute the NDE experience to factors such as oxygen shortage, imperfect anesthesia, and the body's neurochemical responses to trauma. Specialists like Dr. Alexander dismiss these explanations as inadequate. The medical conditions under which NDEs happen, they say, are too varied to explain a phenomenon that seems so widespread and consistent. They believe that the NDE is a result of consciousness existing in some non-material form, independent of but closely connected to the brain. At the time of death, they hold, consciousness is released to experience another realm. Regardless of scientific evidence, the near-death experience has repeatedly been reported to be an incredibly powerful one, often leading to profound revelation and transformation.
Well, it all started in a very primitive, coarse, unresponsive realm that I call the earthworm's eye view, a very, very dark and murky kind of coarse reality, like being in dirty jello. Turns out that from that realm, I was rescued by a slowly spinning white light, very clear, that came bundled with a perfect musical melody. And that white light opened up like a rip in the fabric of that ugly earthworm eye view realm and led up into an ultra-real valley, what I call the Gateway Valley, that was filled with many Earth-like features. For example, there was lots of plant life, lush growing, flowers blossoming, buds on trees, no sign of any death or decay. But that was only a stepping stone to higher and higher levels. And in fact, those angelic choirs, the music from them provided yet another portal. Music, vibration, frequency are the way that our souls transcend these realms. But it was just an extraordinary spiritual journey, and the most amazing thing, of course, is that it happened when my brain was demonstrably offline, when the neocortex was known by my neurologic exams and by my scans. My doctors knew that I could not have had any kind of robust experience because this was far more real than anything I've ever experienced in my existence.
So what then does the NDE reveal about the very nature of reality?
I am completely confident in saying, yeah, the physical world is an illusion. And, and it makes me sound psychotic, and that's all right. Because if they haul me away to a mental hospital, that's an illusion too, and maybe a very interesting one, right? I mean, we're not putting the world down by saying that it's illusory. This is an illusory, narrative-driven thing we're in. And where I have come in my thinking about it is that apparently we finish this one story and then we go through some incomprehensible process, and then I gather we're back on another storyline.
In 2014, linguist and author Lisa Smart created the Final Words Project with Dr. Raymond Moody. This investigation collects accounts from healthcare providers, friends, and family members of the dying. Her book, Words at the Threshold, offers the early findings of the investigation.
So in the words of Stephen Jobs, just before he died, the words were, "Oh, wow, oh, wow, oh, wow."
His words are the ones that might be most popular, many of us have heard, but what's remarkable is in bedrooms or in hospital rooms throughout the country, even throughout the world, words like that are being heard privately. People are seeing remarkable things oftentimes as they leave this world.
I love that. I mean, of all the things he'd seen in this life, what he had seen over there was unbelievable.
So what is over there? Does it really exist? And if so, where? While much more scientific study is required to empirically answer these questions, what is clear is that the near-death experience is an excellent vehicle for exploring the ancient human belief that we are more than our physical bodies. The reality of an afterlife not only suggests that there is more to consciousness than chemical and electrical impulses in the brain, but when the end of life is upon us, fear may be an unwarranted emotion. Life on this earth is precious, yet our passage into the afterlife, beyond this reality, may truly be a wonderful journey.
I mean, to my utter surprise, there is a life after death. So don't be afraid of death. It's not anything to be scared of, but stay here as long as your sentence is, because when you get out of here, it will make sense.